What is going on, everybody? How is everybody doing today? Welcome back here today to another episode of the Just Ballin' podcast. And I just want to start off, sorry for the lack of uploads, sorry for the lack of pods last week. I just uploaded one last week, kind of giving my overall thoughts about the first couple of days of free agency. So for today's episode, to kind of get back into the swing of things, hopefully you guys are going to get 3 episodes out this week. We're going to just talk about news throughout the week. We're going to talk about the DeMar DeRozan signing. I think the Donovan Mitchell re-signing as well, I kind of want to briefly mention. I want to talk about potential Lauri Markkanen trades, potential Brandon Ingram trades, where I think teams stand in their current conferences, and maybe some Olympics Summer League talk at the end as well. So thank you guys for all the support as always, and if you do enjoy these episodes, I'd appreciate it if you drop the thumbs up on YouTube, and if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, leave a rating and review over there as well. And like you guys listening on the podcast formats, so much appreciation comes from me to you on that. So we're going to start off talking about DeMar DeRozan. So DeMar DeRozan signed a 3-year deal with the Sacramento Kings. I think throughout this whole offseason, we had some questions. Where would DeMar DeRozan end up? Because it would not make any sense for him to go back to Chicago, what they're trying to do right now. There looks like they're trying to rebuild. They came out, I think there's been a lot of rumors that they've tried to move Zach LaVine, that they traded obviously Alex Caruso, they did that. So it really wouldn't make any sense for DeRozan to go back to Chicago. And once like the Clippers gave Derrick Jones Jr. a contract, that kind of eliminated a Paul George sign and trade. The Lakers really didn't have enough money to get it done unless DeMar was going to take it looks like an $8 to $10 million pay cut to go to the Lakers. Maybe it could have been the Warriors, maybe it could have been the Miami Heat, which I was kind of leaning towards happening, and that could have been some type of Duncan Robinson or Terry Rozier swap. But no, he ends up going to the Sacramento Kings, which I know people are going to kind of talk about the spacing issues, because you have De'Aaron Fox, subpar three-point shooter. Domantas Sabonis, subpar at times three-point shooter. But I do think that this opens up a unique way that Sacramento can play. I think sometimes in the clutch too, shot creation could be a big thing. Is De'Aaron Fox one of those elite post players or one of those elite dribble drive guys? He's, I think, great at attacking the rim, but if you need somebody for a step back jumper to create his own shot, I think when the game's on the line, he's fine, but I don't think he's proven that he could be one of the best in the league. And now Fox has had his plenty of clutch moments, don't get me wrong, but I think DeMar DeRozan has somehow been underrated over the last couple of years. So a big thing about DeRozan, since he basically joined the Bulls and even some of his end of Chicago days, like this guy plays. Like he played 79 games last year for a very average Chicago Bulls team, and he led the NBA in minutes. 37.8 minutes a night, 74 games in 2023, 76 games in 2022. Towards the end of the Spurs days, I mean, they were kind of tanking, it feels like, in 2021. We're not tanking, but they were kind of out of it in his final days in San Antonio. But DeMar DeRozan plays, and that is going to be so valuable. That's why the Kings were so good 2 years ago. It's because they stayed healthy. They were the healthiest team in the 2023 season. And he's coming off years where he's averaged 28 points, which that was like a great first year in Chicago. 24.5 points in 2023, 24 points last year. And DeMar DeRozan also has a clutch factor to him, which I think is going to be huge for Sacramento in these games that are going to be grit and grind. They're going to be close. You look at the Western Conference as a whole, man, there might be a 5-game separation between the 2 seed and the 11 seed in the Western Conference. I think the Thunder are the best team on paper, and then you got like Denver, Minnesota, Dallas, Memphis in its own tier, and then I think right there close to those guys, you got the Lakers, you got the Pelicans, the Kings, possibly the Warriors, Rockets, and Clippers as well. The West is going to be a dogfight once again, and I'd even mention the Phoenix Suns. Like, it's going to be a lot of competition next year, and I don't think the DeRozan contract is all that bad. It's got a $24 million cap hit next year, which honestly nowadays isn't that bad. Like, he's going to be making less than RJ Barrett. He's going to be making less than Jordan Poole. I think this is an extremely valuable contract for DeMar DeRozan. It does ascend a little bit, like $26 million in age 37. This could be a little bit of a downfall for DeRozan. This could be the first time since the 2013 season we see him score under 20 points a night, because Fox and Sabonis got to get their usage in as well. And then people are going to be like, well, Matt, DeRozan isn't much of a three-point shooter, and Fox has been inconsistent, and Sabonis has been obviously inconsistent from downtown. DeRozan's been a little bit better. He has in his career. Obviously, he's still an elite mid-range, has an elite mid-range game, but that's fine. I'm not worried about shooting right now. They have Kevin Huerter. They have Malik Monk. They have Keegan Murray. They have plenty of shooters they could throw out into that lineup. I think Devin Carter is going to be a good three-point shooter in his rookie season. And I don't really think this could hurt your defense too much, because you still have good perimeter defenders like Keon Ellis, like Devin Carter, who you just drafted. I think Fox is fine out there. And you also have Keegan Murray, who was really impressive, especially in the play-in tournament against Golden State on the defensive end of the floor in a big moment. So I do think it's going to be fine. I'm excited to watch Sacramento. And obviously, Is this move going to make them finals contenders? No. I don't see this team making it to the conference finals. But could they win a round one series against Phoenix, against one of the LA teams, against Dallas? Yes, I would. I don't know if I would bet on them, but it is a possibility. It's not like they have a 0% chance. Like, this team, if it's fully healthy, can win a playoff series. And they still, like, they had to give up a 2031 pick swap to San Antonio to take on Harrison Barnes' contract, which is a little kind of scary to do down the line. They don't own their first round pick next year from the Kevin Huerter trade. So they don't own all their draft capital, but they still have some if they do want to make another move down the line that could involve Kevin Huerter's contract, and they could do something there. So honestly, I'm a fan of the DeMar DeRozan to Sacramento signing. I think this can make them more competitive, and they were a team that was the 3 seed in 2023 and didn't make the playoffs at all in 2024. So they want to be right back into it, and I think they could be a really good regular season team, and that can help to get home court advantage in round number 1. So in my opinion, I really like this for Sacramento. For San Antonio, just getting in there, taking on Harrison Barnes' contract, and you got a 2031 pick swap. They've done a good job with that. Like, they got the 2030 pick swap as well from the Minnesota Timberwolves, and I think a 2031 unprotected first for Rob Dillingham, which is really good value. Harrison Barnes is not great, has more of a mid-range game as well, but solid three-point shooter, not really a clutch player, can take some boneheaded shots. It isn't a great defender, but honestly, if he's going to get a ton of open looks playing in San Antonio next to Wemby, I think he could be more consistent of a shooter than Keldon Johnson. I wonder what this means for Keldon Johnson as well, because now they have a plethora of wings. Now, Barnes could get moved at the deadline if some teams feel like he could be an upgrade for that $18 million this year, $19 million next year. Maybe he's going to revive his career. I don't know, change it around, reinvent himself in San Antonio as maybe this playmaker who's going to lock in on defense but can also be a plus 3-point shooter more consistently. And he's due $19 million in 26, which nowadays is like basically the mid-level exception. That's like what Patrick Williams just got annually. So that isn't too much money. This Barnes contract isn't great, but it's far from the worst in the league. And I think that was a great job by by San Antonio. And for Chicago, at least you got something. You got some seconds. You got some cash. You got Chris Duarte instead of losing DeRozan for nothing. So, hey, that's something. But I think going back to Chicago, you could have moved DeRozan last offseason. You could have moved DeRozan at the deadline, and they opted not to, and they definitely did not get the full value that they could have gotten him for, because he could have definitely helped out a team trying to contend in the playoffs in the 2024 season. So if I had to, this is obviously great for San Antonio. I like this for Sacramento. I like them competing. I mean, this team has been so bad in my lifetime. This is going to be probably the best roster since the early 2000s teams with Peja, Mike Bibby, Vlade Divac, Chris Webber. Like, this on paper should be better than the 2023 team, and they were a 3 seed. So I'm excited to watch Sacramento this year, and I'm going to give the DeRozan sign a trade 2 thumbs up. Next up, I want to talk about just Donovan Mitchell re-signing briefly. I haven't mentioned this on the podcast at all. So Donovan Mitchell signed a 3-year extension with the Cleveland Cavaliers, which basically triggered next year's player option. So he's under contract 2025 for, it looks like, about $35 million. Well, next year, so I guess it voided the 26 player option, excuse me, that's what I meant to say. $46 million in 2026, $50 million in 2027, so he's under contract for the next 3 years. Player option in 2028, obviously we're going to have the same conversations, not like that we just did, basically in the 2027 season, which I don't want to come because I'm going to be 27 years old, and that's going to make me feel old. So I love this for Cleveland. I actually think this was interesting for for Donovan Mitchell to do, but he is going to be able to be eligible for probably a $300 million extension when he is 30 years old, which obviously is going to be very enticing. His career earnings already at $107 million, and it's going to be $292 million at the end of this contract. Man, Donovan Mitchell's going to have like over $600 million in earnings in his career. That is, wow, that is actually shocking to me. Wow, okay. Like Jason Tatum's earnings are going to be crazy. Jokic is going to be crazy. We're just getting into that era of the salary cap. But yeah, this I think opens up a lot of flexibility for Cleveland, gives them a little bit more to extend this timeline, and you're still getting Donovan Mitchell throughout his prime, and you're still going to be able to trade him if that needs to happen while he's still in his prime. And whatever you were going to get for Donovan Mitchell this offseason, which was probably going to be a very nice package, in my opinion, you could still get in a few years from now, even with his cap going up. Maybe it's one less pick just because he's going to be about 30 in that team. He's probably going to have to give him a $300 million deal if he were to leave Cleveland, which I don't know if that feels inevitable. Cleveland could win a championship with Donovan Mitchell there, and maybe that incentivizes him to stay, or maybe they go to a finals or go to a couple conference finals, and he thinks that they could build something here. And I think, like, the Knicks, obviously, I think where he wanted to end up doesn't really make a lot of sense now with them getting Bridges, and they have Brunson. And then Brooklyn maybe could have made sense, but now they're a rebuilding team, so he has probably no desire to go there. So he's like, you know what, let me just stay in Cleveland. Let me get the most amount of money I can get on a 3-year extension, eliminate the distractions. And there was a lot of, like, talk, like, in the beginning of the offseason that him and Garland were done together. Donovan Mitchell, like, was going to want to move on from that backcourt and get a new head coach. They got the new head coach in Kenny Atkinson, which I am a fan of. I thought he got an unfair chance in the KD Kyrie era in 2020. Like, KD wasn't even playing and he got fired. But I do think, like, this team is going to probably still peak at, I think, a round 2 exit next year. I just don't know how much they can optimize the Mobley-Allen frontcourt offensively. I think Mobley, with the spacing and the opportunity that he would get with the floor opened up with him at the 5 and more of a floor spacing power forward next to him, like maybe to Kyle Kuzma or Cam Johnson or somebody like that, I think then we can really see Mobley to his fullest offensive potential. And I don't know if we're going to see that with Jared Allen, who is a fantastic player. And that's why I always thought like maybe Jared Allen from Brandon Ingram made sense this offseason. But obviously they didn't move Jared Allen. I don't think that they will. But I was actually like thinking, like, I'm going around these teams that need centers, like the Pelicans, like the Knicks, like the Lakers wanted a center. Like the Warriors could maybe use another center if they wanted to. Like a lot of teams would value Jared Allen at a very high price. He's making $20 million this year, $20 million next year. And I just feel like, I don't know, he would go for a lot on the open market if he were to get traded. So I feel like Cleveland does have that in their back pocket, which can still be very valuable. And this Mitchell contract is far from, I think, being like an overpay or anything like that. Like Mitchell, in my opinion, is still one of the top 15 guys in the league. And I think this is well worth it. You get to stay competitive. Like I said, I don't think that they're better than Boston, New York, Philly, or probably Milwaukee on paper, I think. And then I think they're right there in the next tier of like 3 teams, I would say, of Orlando, Indiana, and them. Maybe you give some love to Miami. But I think, yeah, they're probably fighting between Indiana and Orlando. On paper, this team, you know what, they were as high as the 2 seed at one point last year. Like they could easily be a top 3 seed in the Eastern Conference if they stay healthy. Like Garland was hurt last year. Mobley was hurt last year. Donovan Mitchell was hurt last year as well. So I think as long as they can stay healthy, this team could definitely be a top 3 seed in the Eastern Conference, which could be huge for playoff seeding. I mean, they went to 7 against Orlando. I think it would have been a little bit more optimism if they ended up getting done with Orlando in 5 games, right? 4 or 5 games. But the fact that they went to 7, you know, it still gave them a little hope that they could maybe make a run at Boston. But Jared Allen was hurt, Donovan Mitchell was hurt, and it was pretty much done. They also picked up Johnny Bryant from the New York Knicks. That he was the top assistant coach for the Knicks. He was always like a big link for Donovan Mitchell in New York because they are friends, like they have a connection together. So I do like this extension for both parties. And like I said, if it doesn't work out, you could still move Mitchell for probably equal value that you were going to get this offseason, and it just extends the shelf life. Because, you know what, if you traded for Donovan Mitchell and you only got like 2 years out of him, that would have been kind of disappointing, right? So at least you're going to get 4 most likely years out of Donovan Mitchell, given all you gave up, all those picks, Sexton, Markkanen. I think it'll at least be somewhat worth it if you can make it to a conference finals, because he is by far the best player they've had since LeBron James, and I don't know if he's as good as Kyrie was there in Cleveland, but he's up there. So he's one of the best players to play in Cleveland in the 21st century. You could probably make an argument he's the 3rd or 2nd best player to play in Cleveland. Definitely better than Kevin Love, and knows teams with LeBron never really had a great number 2. So yeah, Donovan Mitchell, I like that re-signing in Cleveland. Okay, now I want to kind of talk about some trade ideas for Lauri Markkanen, because I think the Jazz, for where they are right now, they're a team that there's no point in being the 11th seed and giving Lauri Markkanen a $50 million extension. Like, this Jazz team has a fun young core. I like it, and they still have nice movable contracts, and they have so much draft capital going forward. They really do. Like, they have, like 18 picks here over the next, 6-7 years till 2031. They have some Cleveland first, some Minnesota first. Just the downside of those, which they gave Gobert, which they gave Donovan Mitchell, they're going to be good. Now, those picks in 2027, 2029, like those picks could be good, but I don't know if they're going to be good in the near future. I don't think they're as valuable as like maybe some of the Suns picks or the Clippers picks, obviously, or maybe the Knicks in 2031, just because you have Anthony Edwards in Minnesota and obviously a lot can change in Cleveland. They do have a 2027 Lakers pick, top 4 protected from taking on Russell Westbrook's trade at the 23 deadline. That could be very valuable as well. So I think for what Lauri Markkanen is right now, you could get probably 3 unprotected first-round picks. Mikal Bridges went for 4, another top 4 protected pick from Milwaukee, and an unprotected pick swap. I think even though Markkanen's an expiring, you can get at least minimum 3 unprotected first-round picks and a young player. Just the way that the league is. I know, it's going to be a hefty price to go after Markkanen, and his contract right now is around $18 million, so it's not going to be tough to match that salary. He's coming off the season where he averaged 23 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, 48% from the field, 40% from 3, 90% from the line for a 7-footer that can handle the ball on the perimeter. He was fantastic in 2023, and his numbers didn't drop off too much in 2024. They even got better in some way. Obviously, the Jazz were just kind of disappointing last year. They ended up going 31-51. They were the 12th seed in the Western Conference, and they lost 6 more games last year than they did in 2023. So, and they kind of added after that 2023 season too. Like, they added John Collins. I feel like Colin Sexton got better. They added a bunch of rookies as well. Maybe just losing Kelly Olynyk, I don't know, and just like that Ochai Agbaji trade, giving off Fontecchio. They kind of lost a couple games towards the end of the season there. I mean, this team could flirt with the play-in tournament. It can. But is it worth it giving Lauri Markkanen $50 million from his age 28 to 20 or to 32 seasons? I don't know where you're peaking with that. And I know you don't want to tear it down, right? Because you've had relatively bad years compared to what you've had with Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. So I see why you wouldn't want to move Lauri Markkanen, and that makes sense. But I do think it's probably better off to rip the Band-Aid off and move Markkanen. I don't know if anyone's giving up anything for Collins, but you can move Colin Sexton. But I think there could be some teams that could give you some enticing offers for Lauri Markkanen, and you could really set yourself up to be a contending team in the late 2020s. I know that kind of sucks, and that could obviously turn around a little bit quicker. Like, look at the Indiana Pacers. They were in like year 2 of their rebuild, and they were in the conference finals. But I think if you were to like call up Golden State, who could be not a desperate team, but a team looking to try to at least filled out a competitive roster around Steph Curry before he retires. He is 36 years old, and you can get there cap-wise. I mean, you're not able to move D'Anthony Melton right now. I believe Gary Payton could probably get it done as well. And you don't even have to take on Wiggins' bad contract. So if theoretically, I'm just going to make sure this money works. Yeah, you could do Gary Payton and Jonathan Kuminga for Lauri Markkanen. The Warriors are not an apron team right now, so they can at least give out, or they can take back $18 million, and they can hand out, what is that, about $16.7 million. But Golden State has most, if not all, of their draft picks. You can get a 2025 first, but maybe you don't want that. Maybe you want 2026, just with Steph another year older, with Draymond a little bit older. You can get 2028, and then if the Warriors are desperate, do they not have their 2030 first? Huh. Why don't they have their 2030 first on this? They might have given away. Why am I not remembering where that must have gone to? I don't know. I actually don't know why it doesn't say they have their 2030 first. But either way, say you get a 2029 pick swap, right? So the Jazz are getting an unprotected pick swap in 2029. You're getting a 2026 unprotected first and a 2028 unprotected first. And that 2026 draft is going to be a good one. There are 2 franchise-altering players at the top there, in AJ Debanta and Cameron Boozer. Yeah, so for this, like, do we do a pick swap? You do a 2026, 2028 first as well. And who knows what the Warriors are going to be in 2028. And you can see what you can get out of Jonathan Kuminga. And I think you can just add him to the young core. Now, maybe the appeal in Jonathan Kuminga is he's going to be going into year number 4. You got to pay him at the end of the year. And do you want to just dish out $30 million to Kuminga? I could see you not wanting to do that. But I mean, there's one point, I don't know if it can't be right now, but it could be at the deadline, where you could just take back expiring contracts like a D'Anthony Melton and a Gary Payton from the Warriors, and maybe you get just 3 unprotected first-round picks for a half a year of Lauri Markkanen. Because I don't, like, Siakam basically went, I think Markkanen's a little bit more valuable than Siakam was, just because he's a little bit younger than when Siakam was dealt. But Siakam went for 3 basically unprotected first-round picks. One wasn't from the Pacers. It was like a Thunder pick that ended up being 19. Well, that was the Pacers one because it was a swap. And they got 2 more firsts out of it. But yeah, I mean, they gave, actually no, one was the Thunder one, and they gave it up for Kelly Olynyk. Like, it could be something like that. And I think that could happen if you didn't want to pay Jonathan Kuminga, which I could see, like, Danny Ainge maybe not wanting to do. But I could see them being interested in Lauri Markkanen. Now, it's interesting, too, because, like, what other teams would be interested? Now that I think the Kings would have been interested, and they got DeRozan, and they could still get a deal done, but they would really have to mortgage their draft capital. And I know they don't want to move Keegan Murray. Would they move Keon Ellis? Probably not. A team like the San Antonio Spurs could realize we could get somebody that's 7 foot tall next to Wembanyama that could space the floor at the power forward spot, who's been an elite 3-point shooter over the last few years, and he's going to get so many wide open looks in the Wemby, like, just kind of front court together. Like, that would be just insane, having just Markkanen and Wemby together, and now we could streamline this and, like, just speed it, like, for the Spurs to get in a playoff spot for Wemby. So there's plenty of matching salary to go out. I don't know if, like, once again, the Jazz would want Devin Vassell. It could be Keldon Johnson. It could be Zach Collins to make the money work. It could be Harrison Barnes, who they just picked up, who's got a perfect match deal, and they may want a veteran on that team. So I know he's recently traded, but, like, say at one point we could just leverage Harrison Barnes in that contract. Now, they have Trey Jones, they have Jeremy Sohan, they have Malachi Branham, who I think could be valuable to Utah as well, just because I think he could be a good shooter. And you have these Atlanta first-round picks, you have the Chicago first-round pick, you have all of your first-round picks. They could make some deals as well, and they have a Boston pick from the Derek White deal. They have the Minnesota Timberwolves picks from the draft night trade. They have the first-round pick, the swap they just got from Sacramento. So there are plenty of deals. Charlotte protected pick. There's plenty of deals you can make. So you can give them, like, the Bulls pick, you can give them the Hawks pick, you can give them the Boston pick, right? So that's basically 3 first-round picks, and I think this, like, obviously it's not going to be able to work because Barnes was just traded for, but you can give them Malachi Branham. I don't know if the Warriors, I mean, like, you could have thrown in Moses Moody as well in a Warriors deal. Harrison Barnes is at least some veteran. It's 2 years. It's not a bad contract, and you can leverage that as well to take on maybe a worse contract, get some more picks, and you can get a Bulls first, Atlanta first, maybe the Boston first isn't appealing. Maybe you get those Minnesota first, something like that. And for San Antonio, you don't have to worry about trading any of your first. You don't have to worry about a year that maybe you hit the injury bug and you could lose out on the 13th overall pick in 2030. Who knows? So I think the Spurs could really have the assets to go out and get Lauri Markkanen, who's 27 years old. And I know Wemby is just 20, right? Wemby is just 20 years old, but I think he gives somebody that you could really pair up next to him right now. But maybe that's not the timeline they want, 7-year difference. Maybe they're looking for somebody around the age of 25 eventually. But I do think the Spurs have the assets to get it done. I do wonder if Miami would become desperate as well. This, I think, could make sense if there was like a 3-teamer involved and Jimmy Butler gets rerouted somewhere else, but I don't really see Utah wanting Rozier, Hero, or Duncan Robinson. I mean, I'm sure they'd be interested in Jaime Jaquez or Khalil Ware, or really Nikola Jovic. I'm sure they'd be interested in Miami's 2029 and 2020 or in 2031 first. I don't know if Pat Riley would be willing to do that. He may not be working in the NBA anymore, so he may not care. I thought the Pistons could have been a team as well, but they went out and got Tobias Harris and some veterans. The Wizards, no. I don't think the Hornets, even though he would be a great fit next to... he would be like a great fit next to Mark Williams and Brandon Miller, but they paid Miles Bridges, so I don't really know if they'd be willing to do that. Chicago, no. Atlanta could be interesting, but they like Jaren Jackson Jr., Jalen Johnson at the 4. I think Memphis would be a fun team as well, because Memphis could really go like all in with this deal. I think you could just do like Brandon Clark. You could do Santi Aldama. You could maybe entice them with Vince Williams, and then you could throw in 2 first-round picks. This is a lot to give up. Or G.G. Jackson could probably get it done as well. Like, could you do Brandon Clark and G.G. Jackson? I don't know if Memphis would want to do that. You'd obviously you'd be paying Bane a lot of money, Ja, Triple J, and Lauri Markkanen a lot of money as well. But you may not have to give up a ton of first-round picks in this deal if it's G.G. Jackson involved, which I feel like Utah could really like, and you're getting still 2 first-round picks in this deal. Like, that could be something for sure. I don't know... Yeah, like, they do have this Phoenix, Washington, Orlando pick Memphis, so, like, that could be a team. I think there are plenty of teams out there. Orlando could be fun, but they wouldn't do that. I mean, they just have all these wings right now. I mean, Cleveland could. I mean, Jared Allen for Lauri Markkanen, low-key would make sense, but they probably would have to give up, I think, another young piece. And maybe it's Jalen Tyson. I don't think, like, any other person's that, like, even Craig Porter Jr. is going to get it done, and they obviously can't really move any of their first-round picks or swaps because they gave all that up for Donovan Mitchell. So they would maybe need to, like, reroute Jared Allen to, like, a different team, and then that team's giving up 3 unprotected first-round picks, and that can go for Markkanen, something like that, right? So I think there are plenty of teams that can go after Markkanen, and I think for Utah, they're in a really good position where they can make some deals right now and really set them up, for a great spot in the future. But I agree, like, you move Markkanen, you're going to be a terrible team in the Western Conference next year, but I'm more excited, like, I'm excited to watch Lowry play, like, he's in his prime. I'm not really excited to watch John Collins as much, or Jordan Clarkson, I think Colin Sexton was great last year, but I'm excited to watch Hendricks and Cody Williams and Isaiah Collier and Keontae George and Walker Kessler hopefully bounce back. I think the Jazz have a nice young core and plenty of draft capital to get deals done as well. Another player that I thought was going to get moved was Brandon Ingram, and I think there's still like an idea for Brandon Ingram for Jared Allen on the table. I mean, New Orleans needs a big. This probably would not work out financially. No, I feel like Cleveland would have to throw in somebody, and that could be like a Karis LeVert expiring deal, and that could be a wing for New Orleans. Now, I'm trying to think who has more value on the trade market, because you may say, Matt, Brandon Ingram's a better player than Jared Allen. He's way more of a shot creator. He's way more of a playmaker. Yeah, he's not the rim protector or rebounder, but I think overall he should add more winning style of play. But I don't know. Jared Allen is on a fantastic contract for the next 2 years. $20 million this year, $20 million next year. Yeah, you're going to have to pay him. And if I'm giving out max contracts, I'd probably rather give it out to Ingram, but I don't think Allen would get a max contract. And when you acquire Brandon Ingram, you basically are locking yourselves into a $50 million extension. You're basically locking yourselves into what Paul George just got or OG Anunoby just got. So you really have to trade for Ingram and then dish out a lot of cap. And I think that's why maybe a team like Detroit was hesitant to go out and get Brandon Ingram. I think if the Pelicans are like, we're not going to be able to re-sign him, we have the second apron, we're paying all these guys, I think there are some teams that can get in there. I would love if Miami tried to do something with Tyler Hero. I mean, they could do something with Terry Rozier as well, and Duncan Robinson if you think you can keep Hero, but you'd probably have to dip into, probably don't want to move Khalil Ware. You'd probably have to dip into Nikola Jovic or Jaime Jaquez or some of these first-round picks, which I think is risky for Miami right now with their ceiling as a team. The Pacers could have been interesting, but I think the Pacers probably want to run out this core one more time to see how far they can go and maybe try out Jarvis Walker at the 3. Dallas would be fun as well, but they don't really, like, they could throw in Quentin Grimes, you could throw in OMP, you could throw in Jaden Hardy, and financially you can probably get there pretty easily with Maxi Kleber. Actually, no, Maxi Kleber's only making 11. I'm tripping. Yeah, it would be tough to get there financially now that you paid Clay. You no longer have Josh Green on your team. The Clippers would be a team that would maybe want to get out there. You could probably throw in Norman Powell. Ivica Zubac would be enticing, but then you're leaving yourself with no big man in Los Angeles. The Lakers, a reunion there could make sense theoretically if they're willing to part ways with one of these later first-round picks, and maybe Jared Vanderbilt and Austin Reeves, or Jared Vanderbilt and Rui Hachimura are interesting to New Orleans. Golden State, I think I'm going to go back to them as well because they're a team, like I said, is desperate to win a championship for Steph Curry. Now you probably would have to move Andrew Wiggins in a deal, and I think they would have to worry about him getting rerouted to a different team, which may cost a Moses Moody or an extra draft pick to get for someone to take that contract. Either it's a San Antonio or a Charlotte or somebody like that. But I think the Warriors could make sense to make a move. The Rockets I didn't mention for Lauri Markkanen because they got Jabari Smith. You have Şengün. I don't know though. Wait, is Reed Shepard makes $10 million a year as a first-year rookie? I don't know if that's correct, but that is kind of insane. Wow, yeah, NBA money's different. I don't know. Like, would Houston be in the market to make a big move? Because you basically could be looking at it like we're upgrading Dylan Brooks for Brandon Ingram. Like, we could do Dylan Brooks, and they need a big man. We could send Steven Adams as well, something like that. And obviously, they have some nice picks. They don't have some of their picks from the Russell Westbrook, Chris Paul trade, but they have the Suns picks now from the trade with the Nets pretty recently. So they could make some type of move with that. I don't know if I would give up picks for Ingram. I think they've kind of been rumored to want to give him for a big name. It's a KD or Booker or even a Zion Williamson. So I think, I don't know if Ingram, but they would have the draft capital to do it. I don't know if they would be more enticed for doing it for Lauri Markkanen. But I don't know. Like, the Rockets have so much young talent. Who's going to work out? Like, they got AJ Griffin in a trade this offseason. I'm still super high on Tari Eason. Cam Whitmore had a good rookie year. You have Amen Thompson, you have Reed Shepard, you have Jabari Smith Jr. Like, the jury is still like Jalen Green, Alperen Şengün. Like, we're trying to figure out what's going on with these guys. And he was like the franchise star for this team because we all thought it was Şengün. And then there was some rumors that maybe it's not. I thought Atlanta was going to try to get in on the sweepstakes for Brandon Ingram, and maybe there's another move to be made. Maybe it involves Clint Capella, and we can open things up for Onyeka Okongwu, and now that they have Larry Nance, they don't really need him. And maybe it's Cody Zeller. I don't know if they're really willing to give up any draft picks. Maybe you give them Sacramento's first, and that's it. And, like, New Orleans gets a big in Clint Capella that can kind of roll, catch alley-oops, and run for them. You get Zeller for depth, and you get a Kings first for Ingram, just to at least get something, because you don't want him to leave for nothing in free agency. That's always the worst possible scenario. I always wonder if Denver would try to make a lateral move, but I don't really think Ingram is an upgrade over Michael Porter Jr., who does fit that system fairly well. Boston, no. Knicks, no. I thought we could see maybe Milwaukee do something what they did with like Drew to Lillard last offseason. Could we see them go from Middleton to Ingram? Or could they somehow pull off Brook Lopez for Brandon Ingram? They would probably have to throw in like an AJ Green for some shooting. And maybe some Andre Jackson for some defense. I mean, you're looking at the draft pick situation too for the Milwaukee Bucks, and it's not great whatsoever. I don't know if you want to trade your 2031 first, but this could provide to Giannis that you are trying to win now, but are you going to pay Middleton and Giannis and Lillard and Ingram all this money? No, because they're going to be, like a second apron team, and they already are. So it would be very tough to pull this off. You probably have to include Bobby Portis. Maybe Pat Connaughton could be in it as well. Like you're giving up a lot of depth though, and Milwaukee doesn't have the depth to do something like Lopez, Connaughton, Green, and Jackson for Ingram. So I think that is risky as well, but we'll see. So I think there's a chance. I think Ingram's probably more likely to get moved than Lauri Markkanen. But yeah, we'll see. And we do have the Olympics starting up. I'm actually going to be live streaming on the Bleacher Report app, doing a pregame show for the USA-Canada exhibition game Tuesday night. So be on the lookout for that on the Bleacher Report app. And then I'll be doing a postgame at it's going to be like 1 a.m. I think Eastern time, because the game starts at 10:30 Eastern time as well on the Bleacher Report app. And I'm super excited for the Olympics. Like, we haven't gotten the Olympics since 2021, and that was still like a COVID feel to it. A lot of the talent wasn't playing in it. We got freaking Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, and LeBron James, like one last dance with this crew, and Anthony Davis. Like, I'm very excited to watch the Olympics this year. And we got the Summer League going on as well. Like, Kalel Ware's been a nice standout so far. Dalton Connect did much better in his second game in the California Classic than his first one. And we're going to see these guys roll in and roll out. I was really shocked to see, like, Scoot Henderson not playing in the Summer League just after the kind of down rookie year that we thought he would have had. And he performed not great. And, it would have been nice because guys like Brandon Miller are in the Summer League, and he's probably somebody that needs it a little bit less than Scoot Henderson, which I thought was kind of interesting. So hope you guys did enjoy this episode of the Just Ballin' podcast. Talked a lot in this episode, and I enjoyed it a ton. You guys should get an episode out on Wednesday, and I'll catch you all there. Peace.